Okay, I'm going to try this again. This will be the second video that I've done trying to describe the things that's happened to me in my past. Okay, there's a couple of things I need to straighten out before I go this far. I've had a stroke. 3 years ago, I was at work and I was trying to do a little bit too much. A couple people were out of work and I was trying to cover for them, and it was the middle of summer and it was just too hot. A stroke's a strange thing. You can have a stroke and not really know that you had a stroke. The only thing that I could tell was that I couldn't talk. But I had been taking medication for my back and the doctor had just changed some, so I thought that it was that. I came home, I took a shower and went to bed for a nap. When I woke up, I didn't slur no more, because when I was at work, I couldn't speak. And my language was gone, and that was the most visible part of it. Well, when I woke up, I was fine. But I woke up the next morning and it had me totally. So I've had a stroke, and it makes me slur my speech quite a bit. Also, I'm in the process of getting dentures, so that don't help none either. Luckily, in about 2 or 3 months, I'll have dentures. So between the two, I hope you can understand what I'm saying. That's just it. I've had a stroke and I've had my teeth pulled, and I hope you understand it. But I got to get this done. I don't think there is that much time left to do what the Lord wants us to do. I am a Christian. I didn't make that really plain in the other video. I believe totally in Jesus Christ. I believe that He shed His life for us, plain and simple. God's the Father, Jesus is His Son, Jesus is our salvation, the only way to get to heaven. Simply that. That's the way it is. The world has went through a bunch of things in the last few months, and that's what makes me think that we just don't have much time. The Revelations, as I understand it, is being fulfilled right in front of our eyes. Israel is surrounded by hostile troops. Okay. A few years before I had actually had this encounter I'm going to tell you about, I was in the Navy, had just got out of boot camp, and had come home for leave before I went to school. It was off season. I was at Carolina Beach, and when you're off season, there is nobody down there. A few fishermen, but that's about it. I went up to the Richie's Rec Hall, and I'd been home for a couple of days, and I'd already seen the family, and I just wanted to get out of the house. I went up to Richie's, and there was a guy up there that I had went to school with, who was a kind of a strange guy. His name was Donald. And I walked up to Donald and I asked Donald, how's it been going? And he was kind of a little spacey, a little airhead, which Donald was always that way. But there was one thing about Donald that I had always known, but I didn't really believe it, was he said that he was a devil worshiper. And I know he carried this satanic Bible around with him and he read it all the time. But I didn't believe in that stuff. I mean, it's hard enough to believe in God when you're young, much less anything else, okay? Well, I asked him if he wanted to shoot some pool, and he said no. He said, but he needed a ride home. He asked me if I'd give him a ride home, which I knew wasn't but a couple miles away. And he said that he had 4 girls staying at his house. And told me to come home and meet them and what have you, So I thought, yeah, sure, what heck. I just got out of boot camp. I don't mind meeting some ladies. So I took Donald to his house and we went inside. And I met these ladies, and they wanted to go out and do something. And Donald had told them about this thing called the Mako light. Now, the Mako light is this, what they call a ghost light, which is outside of Wilmington, uh, which is pretty much famous. I mean, everybody knows the Mako Light. And I had been out there a dozen of times, easily, with everything from Boy Scouts to church groups, you name it. I'd been out there a whole bunch. So he said, let's go to the Mako Light. Well, the girls wanted to do that. Well, I'm happy with that. I'm tickled to death with that. I drive a little bitty Subaru car. It wasn't but a year old, so sure. Well, it's kind of hard to get 6 people in there, which a guy would enjoy. 2 girls sitting in the front seat of that little thing with him. So when we got out in the car, Donald he said, stop, I got to go back in the house and get something. And he said, I'll be right back. Well, he went in the house. Sure enough, it didn't take him but a minute. And he got this big black candle. I didn't think nothing about it. I was more interested in the girls than anything Donald was doing or saying. So we was on the way out there. It's like 20 miles outside of Wilmington. So we was talking, and the girls were obviously scared of Donald. They were saying some things that he had done the night before that had really scared them. I mean, with lights floating around in the room and stuff I had never heard of. But they were scared of him. But they wanted to go see the Mako Light, okay? We got out to the Mako Light and we walked down the tracks. That's what you always done. You park the car up at the crossroads and you go walking down the track. Now, I had seen this thing easily a dozen times. And all it was a light that would appear down the track. And it would appear, and then it would fade back out, and then it would reappear. But it'd be a little bit closer each time. Then it would fade back out, and finally it would get within a couple hundred yards, and then it would fade back out, and then you wouldn't see it no more. But if you look back behind you up the other tracks the other way, you would see this thing. So I knew there was something there. I couldn't really explain it, but I knew there was something there. Okay. Donald told us, he said, we was walking down the tracks. He said, y'all stay right here. I'll need to walk down the tracks and I'll be back. So he walks down the tracks 30, 40 yards and he sits down with his black candle and he lights it and he sits down for 2 or 3 minutes. And he comes back up to us and the candle was still burning, which is kind of unusual, a candle burning outside. And he told me, he said, you go get the candle. And because wasn't none of the girls going to go get it. He'd already scared them so bad they wasn't going to get it. And I thought, okay, I ain't scared of nothing out here. I'll go get the candle. Well, I walked down the tracks and I got the candle, blowed it out, and come back up there. And Donald looked me square in the eyes and he said something. He said, you will see that light tonight the best you've ever seen it. I didn't care what he said. I was more interested in the 4 girls than I was Donald. Okay? Plain and simple. You know, I mean, I'm a guy, okay? Well, we all got, and sure enough, it wasn't very long, and this light started, it's appearing and disappearing, like it always had, and I've seen it many times. And it kept getting closer, and closer, and closer. And directly, it got so close that I was sitting here thinking, I've never seen this thing get this close before. And I'm sitting here just in amusement, or standing, just amused by what I was seeing. This thing quit going out, and when it was maybe like 100 yards away, it quit going out, and it kept coming up the track towards us, and it got to a point to where when it was, I don't know, 60, 80 yards away, I could see the body on this thing. Now, I had heard stories of people seeing the body on this Mako Light thing, but I didn't never believe it. I never talked to nobody who had done it. This thing was walking up the track, and it was as solid as anything that you've ever looked at. I mean, I could totally see it around it because it was carrying this lantern in its right hand. And this lantern, the reason the light had always changed from red to white, and I didn't know this, was that it had 2 sides of the lantern that had panes of glass in them. The other 2 sides were solid. The panes of glass was red on one side and white on the other side. And he's holding his hand out, and he's walking up the track, zigzagging. And according to which way he was walking, you would see either the red light or the white light. Now, I could see this thing because of the light around him. I could see this thing perfectly. I mean, I could tell he was in a jacket and jeans, or what looked like jeans. I couldn't tell whether it was railroad jeans or whatever, but he was in a jacket. But I could see the collar on his jacket, and there wasn't no head. This guy didn't have no head whatsoever. Okay, he had gotten so close that something in me snapped, and it said, okay, it's time to run. But I couldn't move. And I noticed that nobody else could move either. Now, I'm sitting here straining with all my energy, and I was pretty much in shape to try and move, and I couldn't. The girls were whining. They were trying to move and run too. Nobody could move. Now, I don't know whether Donald could have or not. I have no idea. I never asked him. I never cared. Never wanted to know. But this thing kept getting closer and closer, and directly this thing is within 40 yards, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, but I mean, I'd say easily 40 yards. And it's as solid as it can be, and it's walking from one side of the tracks to the other, and that's why you're seeing the red light and then the white light, because, you know, it's just the way it is. He's holding this lantern out in his hand, but he didn't have no head. So that experience, I mean, eventually something snapped, and I don't know what it was. Something snapped, and we all could run, and we run. I mean, we hauled butt back to the car. And when we got back to the car, of course, it was gone, and it didn't appear back up the tracks like it always. Of course, these girls were whining and whimpering. They wanted out of there, which I did too. I didn't. I didn't want nothing to do with this thing anymore. So we get in the car, and we're headed back towards Wilmington. I had pretty much lost all interest in the girls. All I wanted to do was go home. I just had the crap scared out of me, and with things I couldn't explain, I just wanted to go home. Plain, simple. Okay, so I had experience that I couldn't explain with the supernatural. So whenever the thing come along with the school, it wasn't like it was unexpected. I understood that there was a supernatural side of this world that I couldn't explain. So I was kind of interested to see if I could learn some stuff. So I had already told you I met this guy, and I had joined this club, and this initiation service, it was a powerful event. So powerful that I don't know, I about passed out. It was a struggle. I had been in the school for a couple of years, in the meditation and all these exercises and everything, and part of the thing is astral projection. And astral projection is a real thing. I mean, it's 100% real. Now, I'll tell you later on how it works, but right now all I'm going to tell you is that it does work. You can do it, but you got to have help. Okay? We had been talking about in the school about something coming. Okay, I had to pause it because I had to get this picture. I told you the last video that I was going to show you a picture of something, and this picture has just now come out on the internet that I've seen it, a year ago maybe, but I'm going to show you what this picture is. And I seen this over 40 years ago. Now the guys I was out there with, the other guys in the school, were scared to death of this thing. Okay, I think you got a picture of it. Its title is, I don't know, New Jerusalem, a picture of New Jerusalem. The guys were scared of it, but I wasn't. I was drawn to this thing. In fact, I got closer than anybody else did to it. And I got so close that it's like I could see people inside of it moving around. It was like these windows. This outer layer had like windows. And hang on, I can't do two things at once. Okay, so, and when these people stopped, and it was like they were moving around, and some of them stopped and looked at me. Now that scared me. When that happened, I come flying back to to the earth. I mean, but I had seen this a couple years before the experiences that I'm going to tell you about had happened. So the seeds were planted. There's some kind of alien thing coming, and that was just my reality at the time. Okay, this particular summer, there was a young lady that come to work at the restaurant. At this time, I was only working one job, full-time at the restaurant. Cooking was something I loved to do. I've always loved to cook, and I've always had a talent for it. It may be the only talent that I have that's from God, because it just comes natural to me. I think I can cook anything. I started cooking when I was 6 years old. My mom was dying in a hospital, so it was easy. Somebody had to feed me, and it left up to me. So, okay, my dad was a truck driver, so you understand. It was what it was, which I loved to cook. It didn't bother me. So I was cooking at this restaurant, and this young lady named Wendy come to work there. Now, Wendy was going to Callaway, or Western Carolina. She lived in, her family lived in Charlotte. And there was just something about this woman that I had never experienced anything quite like this. I mean, my insides were totally blipping out over this girl. And I thought, well, this is the girl that destiny has picked for me. This is the girl I'm going to be married to. Young and dumb. But this is what I believed. I mean, what I found out later, and I'll go ahead and tell you right now, the picture of the mule with the ear of corn on a stick in front of it and the mule being led was exactly what was happening with Wendy Tucker. I didn't know that. I had no way of knowing that. But God used Wendy Tucker to get me to the point where He wanted me. And, I mean, we had been working for months, and it was hard to get time off together when you're working every night. It was hard to get time off so that I could ask her to go to a movie or just go out and eat or something, anything. And it was like when I would get a date off work where I could ask her out, somebody would just walk in the restaurant, but I didn't know none of them, and they would be friends of hers or her family's, and they would be sailing down the coast in a yacht, and they had asked her to go sailing with them. I mean, like, I'm thinking, how in the world can I compete with that? I'm a poor beach guy. And it was like there was something supernatural that was keeping me from developing a relationship I wanted to with this woman. And she kept talking about God and Jesus and all this, and I didn't believe her none of it. Well, I could sense that there was something about her that was in control of things that I couldn't explain. And I'm thinking aliens. Okay, I've done seen the alien base coming. I've heard of it in school. We've been watching for it. So I thought, okay, this is really kind of pissing me off that I can't get near the woman I love. So let me go to this church and see who I'm going to end up having to kill. Plain and simple. No problem. I was that much of a warrior. Okay? I go to this church. It was on Wednesday night. When these people, it wasn't a preaching service. It was like singing and praying, a praise service. When they started this, there was, I can only say there was power, energy that I could not comprehend coming out of this cross up there. And it was like these people were feeding off of this. It's like some kind of drug. I mean, I'd never seen nothing like this. But these people were literally feeding off of this power. Okay? And this went on for like an hour, hour and a half. And the service was over. Well, I marched my little butt right up there. I wanted to see what this was, because I knew there had to be some kind of wires going up this cross. Big wooden cross, 30 foot, maybe a little bit more, all hand hewn. I thought there's got to be a conduit with wires up this thing. Or, I go up here and I'm beating on it and I'm kicking on it. I can't find no wires nowhere. I thought, okay, well, it's got a hole drilled in the center. That was my logic. But the power that come out of this thing, I mean, I never felt nothing like that. And to me, it was scary. I mean, I was frightened about this, but at the same time, it wasn't scary. Kind of weird. Well, I went home that night, and I'm sitting there, and I'm undressed. I'm sitting on the couch, and I was living at Curie Beach, and the front door was open. It's summertime. It was warm, but it felt nice with the door open. Nice breeze. And all of a sudden, this thing that had the same signature or identity that I had felt in this church, this thing came just storming in my front door. Now, in the world that I was in, this was not acceptable. You don't go into another person's house. I mean, that's reason for war, plain and simple. This thing come in my house. I jumped up and hit my feet and became instantly hostile and defensive, mind focused, ready to attack or be attacked, whatever. And not knowing if this thing could understand language, and definitely not knowing what language it spoke, because I'm thinking this is an alien being. I said out loud, I said, who the hell are you and what do you want? Now, this is the first time I ever tried to communicate with this thing. And I heard it say, I am. I heard it say, I am, and then some other word. And then I am again. And I said out loud, I said, I am. I said, who the hell are you? And it said, God. Plain and simple. I laughed in his face. I mean, boy. And I told him, I said, and I'm speaking out loud because I'm not sure how to communicate with this thing any other way. I said, I laughed, and I laughed good. I said, buddy, I don't know what you are, but you ain't God, plain and simple. And he kind of shrugged his shoulders, was the feeling that I got. Okay, he kind of shrugged his shoulders, but he introduced himself as God. So I wasn't going to argue with him. What I wanted to do, my thinking process was I've got to learn all I can about this thing so I can figure out how to attack him, because he's controlling Wendy and I need to kill this guy. Okay, that's simple logic. And we started communicating. And it was It was not hostile. And this went on for several weeks. He would just show up and we would talk about things, and then he would leave. And he would show up and we'd talk about things, and he would leave. I mean, it was things like, what do you think about this, or what do you think about that? And I would tell him what I thought, and then he would tell me what he thought. And I have to say, he was smart. I mean, I wasn't winning any of the debates. It wasn't really debates. It's just statements of what you believe. This thing was, it was smart. I remember one night in particular. Okay, I'll tell you this and I'll stop. One night in particular, he come in and he said, "Go sit down in front of your aquarium." Now, living at the beach, I had saltwater aquariums. I love saltwater aquariums, and I'd change the water every couple of days. I had a bucket and a rope. I'd go out to halfway out the fishing pier, and I'd get fresh water, and I'd change out the aquarium water, a couple times a week or as needed. And I had some beautiful things. I knew some places to go get rocks that were just covered with sea life. And I had probably 20 to 25 sea anemones in there. And these were all fully adult sea anemones. And I thought sea anemones were beautiful. And this sea anemone, he told me, he said, "Come sit down and watch this." I came sit down. Suddenly, well, it wasn't suddenly, but the sea anemones started moving around. Now, sea anemones are slow. But they were moving faster than I had ever seen them move. Now, I had seen them move before, but not like this. They all began pairing up, and they would come up to another one, and they would bend over. One would bend over and touch the other one, and the other one would bend over and touch the other one. It was like they were finding each other. And I'm sitting here and I'm completely blown away because I've never seen anything. I've had sea aquariums or aquariums for years. I've never seen anything like this. Well, then they got together, and one of them would become real short and open up all of his tentacles, and the other one would become real long and kind of shrink his tentacles in. And he would secrete some kind of viscous white fluid. I mean, I know that sounds bad, but it would bend over and it would drip right into the other sea anemone. And whenever this liquid would touch the other sea anemone, it would quiver. It was like it was totally aware of what was going on. Now, this is way beyond anything I thought sea anemones would ever be able to do or conceive, that they were that intelligent. And then they would switch roles. The one that was short would become long and thin, and the other one would become short, and they would reverse the process. One would secrete something and pour it into the other one. And every one of them was doing this. I mean, I had never even heard of anything. I'd never known nobody. They didn't have the internet back then, okay? I didn't know how sea anemones bred. Well, needless to say, in the next few weeks, there was probably, I'm not going to say thousands, there was hundreds of thousands of little sea anemones. These things were like the size of a head of a pin. I ended up losing the entire tank because you couldn't see in it. There was sea anemones everywhere, on all the rocks, the sand, the walls. I mean, thousands and hundreds of thousands of sea anemones. But, okay, I'm going to have to stop there because I promised myself I'd only make these 30 minutes or so. Okay, so I have met this entity. He claims he's God. I laughed in his face, told him he wasn't. We're debating, and now he's showing me something that I wasn't sure if he made these sea anemones do what they done. I wasn't sure. But I had never seen them, and I've had them for years. I'd never seen them do that. Okay, I'm going to stop right now, and I will continue with the next episode and go from there. So, guys, have a good night. Good Lord bless and keep you. And I'll see you later.